Okay, so now it's time for the next interview. This time we are at Swapper and I'm sitting here with Pēteris Ķīsis, the CEO of the company, of course. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate to be here, of course, and it's a really interesting scene in startup scene and fintech scene here in the Baltics. We already talked about it before the camera was switched on, to be honest.
Sure.
But I think we will make a short summary as well in the interview then. But maybe first of all, you can introduce you and the platform we are talking about in a few sentences to give all our viewers just an impression of what we are talking about, and maybe also what are the chances of investing in P2P in your platform.
So let me give you a broad start, perhaps. As you mentioned, Swapper is one of several companies based in Latvia that are in the category of marketplace lending. And we've been around since October 2016, so it's a fairly recent start. But for this particular country and industry, I think it's already a big experience. And Swapper, basically what we do, Swapper is a daughter company of Vandu Finance.
Exactly, I wanted to ask about that, yeah. And Vandu Finance is
Vandu Finance is founded a bit earlier than Swapper, so early. I think late 2015 or early 2016. And basically what the logic behind Swapper is that Vandu Finance is basically originating the loans in such markets as Denmark, Poland, Russia, Georgia and Spain. And then we are putting those loans originated by Vandu onto the platform. And if you think about specifically how that compares to other platforms, especially like when you think about Mintos or Bondora, in our case, we only put on the platform loans issued by Vandu. So it's basically
so its loan originator is in-house, of course.
It's part of the same company.
Yeah.
And that's why our, let's say, aim or strategy is not to grow by sort of pulling in different originators from all over the world and just to grow the platform.
Yeah.
So our platform grows organically with the lending business. So as the lending business grows, the platform of course also then grows hand in hand.
I see. So consumers who want a loan just go on Vandu Finance, and of course the investors go to Swapper.
Yes,
so
exactly.
That's, to compare it. Okay, great. And what kind of loans do you offer? And maybe you can describe all types in a few easy sentences for our viewers and me to understand which kind of repayment do they have, what are the differences?
Sure. Vandu generally focuses on short-term lending, so that is loans anywhere from a few days to about 3 months. And that's that makes up about I think 80% of the portfolio, and then the remainder is a bit more longer-term loans where you would be looking at 1 to 2 years, but it's still fairly short periods, and I think it's fairly characteristic of the industry in general. And the loans themselves are consumer loans, non-collateralized loans, and it's the standard stuff available online through the various lending platforms.
Okay, so what's the average interest rate for investors? Because that's, I think, the interesting part of the video as well. How much can I earn as an investor? What's the return per year?
One of the, let's say, key unique selling points that we always stress when we talk to our investors is that since launching back in 2016, our interest rate has been the same, and it has been 12% for all loans. And we have not changed that for any period. And our unique, I think, advantage in a way is that we only have one rate. So it's
12%.
When you come to Swapper, it's easy. You know you're going to get 12%.
Yeah, for everything. So I just put on the auto invest function, of course, and then I have 12% per annum.
Yes.
But the payment I receive is monthly, of course, as I watched it. Yeah, so it's like great income month per month.
Yes.
So it's about 1% return of the invested amount, I think, per month. Yeah. So, for example, if you invest 10,000 euro, you will receive about 100 euro each month.
Yeah, and on top of that,
but in my case, and maybe also our viewers are interested in that, I earn 14%. So why that?
Again, one of the unique points about Swapper, apart from the single rate, is that we also offer what we call a loyalty bonus which in principle says that if you invest above 5,000 euros for at least 3 months, you will be granted a loyalty bonus of plus 2% on top of the 12. So in effect, you will be earning 14% on all your investments on Swapper. And that has been around, I think, also since early launch.
Yeah, because I think 14% is one of the best interest rates from all platforms I remember about. So it's really on the top anyway. Yeah.
I think that on the averages, I think around usually when you look at the category in general, I think from anything from 10 to 14 is about where most platforms are positioning themselves in our region of the world, of course.
But to say 14% is really good because you also have to think on the compounding effect, and the compounding effect then it makes a lot of difference if I have 6% or if I have 12% or if I have even 14%. Yeah.
But one of the let's say perhaps the caveats about the 14% and about the 12%, which is characteristic of not just us but also other platforms, is that you only earn the 14 on money that's invested into loans. So you might have, 1,000 euros onto your Swapper account, but out of that you might have, 900 invested at any given moment. So the 900 would be earning your 14%, but the remaining 100
of course,
who are just sort of sitting there, they are sort of not doing anything. And I think that's one of the, let's say, the issues we are dealing with, and other platforms are dealing with, of course, how to generate more loans. So
more consumers, of course, on the consumer side and not on the investor side. Yeah, but
exactly.
I watch it pretty closely. I just love it. Every morning I check all my P2P platforms because it's just a good feeling. I have the coffee in the morning and then you look all the incomes. Yeah, I just like it, to be honest. Yeah, and that's also a reason why I really feel happy to be here right now in the zone where I look every morning on the platform, and now I'm here with the people behind and get to know the human side of it, of course. Yeah. So and as I watched, there is, I think, no problem with the loans at the moment. I made the tip. I read it in the groups, the B group and so on, that I made I think 6 or 8 auto invest portfolios, and this works pretty properly.
Well,
I think.
Generally, you can also just make one, and it would work. And not that it should, but it would. But always, I think. Which is, of course, I think we need to think about how to explain the user experience, or how to make the user experience even better, so that these things are more intuitive. Because sometimes what we find is that, especially newer investors, they would set up their auto invests in a way that, let's say, reduces the chances of investments being made. So you have to be careful with the settings.
But maybe you can make a video or something.
Yeah, actually, on our blog we actually have a.
You have it. Okay. Then maybe you can send me the link of it, and I put it under this video.
Yeah,
so our investors can just see it right now. Then we don't need to explain it right now. I think because I just say watch the other video. I put it in the description under the video, and then we have this solution.
Perfect. And answering your question about loans. About the amounts, I think that's one of the things you probably want to know about. Is we discussed about loans. Currently, we are putting about 2.7 million euros worth of loans onto the platform each month. So and that sort of gets in a way divided up by about 1.4 thousand investors. So that make up the volume. And that's the amount of where we are at the moment. Yeah, but it works great for me. So that's what's it's at the end, and I have no problem with it. Okay, so it's all loans have monthly repayment. Yeah, so it's not per year; it's always per month. Yes.
Each month they have repayment. Yeah. Okay, then maybe we can proceed to the questions from all the different community members in social media. I received a lot, of course. I hope you have some time for us. The first question is from the Aktien mit Kopf community. I think the thread was, I posted there, I think it was deleted, so I hope I got all questions. Yeah. If not, I'm sorry for the members. But I have one question from Evi Regi. If an investor get he said 10% rate, but of course it's for more platforms, so it's a general question. If an investor gets, for example, a 10% rate out of it, how high is the interest rate charged to the consumer who actually has to pay back the credit? Yeah, so that's a good question, I think. Yeah,
I think that's a question we get a lot from people that we talk about. Generally depends on the market. I think that's the general answer.
Okay.
But the rate that consumers would be charged would be in excess of about 100% per year.
Okay, but they only have a short term, of course, so it's not.
But yeah, usually when you mention the number, everyone's a bit shocked. But
no,
when you think about that, you take a €100 loan for 2 weeks, then 100% per year. It's not that much.
Yeah, of course.
So you always have to sort of compare in a way apples with apples. And
yeah.
So yeah, it is, in essence, to answer the question, it is in excess of 100%. So with that amount, we can cover the what we pay investors. Also, we can cover let's say the defaulted loans. And also the buyback.
That would have been, of course, the next question, because I wanted to ask if it's enough difference to secure, of course, the buyback and to finance it. Yeah.
That's why the rate is that high, and that's why.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think it's the important thing is that these consumer loans are short-term loans. So for us, we invest, of course, the whole year, but they just lend maybe for.
And I think you also have to.
2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever.
Usually, I think what also creates some misconceptions that people, when they think about marketplace lending or peer-to-peer, is that they sometimes have this banking mindset that they should have the same, let's say, safety measures or the same sort of procedures in place as you would have in a bank.
Yeah.
But that comparison is not always, I think, valid.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Okay, then I think we proceed to the question from my friend Tuan. He is the blog owner of Finanzpolster, maybe you know it, and member of the Financial Events Table in Wien, a community. We meet about every 2 months, and so on. And he has some questions to you. Of course, we will also make an interview on this blog, I think, later on his website. He asks, when will you reach break-even?
That's a good question, but generally Swapper is that's why I mentioned when we are talking, I think off camera, is that Swapper is a bit different from Mintos in the regard that we are not planning to add just many loan originators to break even. Our business model is that we are financing our let's say our lending business or co-financing our lending business through the platform. And to answer your question, the break-even part depends really on the market. Let's say if you look at a market like Poland, and then now I'm talking about the lending business.
Yeah.
And a market like Poland, there we are profitable. But in the newer markets like Spain or now Russia, we just started there. So of course the numbers wouldn't look that.
Okay, but maybe to talk about Swapper and the annual results of the company, of course. Is it profitable, or is it a minus, or is it?
It is profitable.
So it's profitable, so it's it's positive.
But it's because of the way the business model works, not so because it's not the same as let's say Mintos or Bernhard.
Okay, great. So the loan originator, of course, you're on your own. That's not important. Then he has another question. If we face economic downturn, what impact does it have on your company and on the P2P market? What do you think about it?
That's also a question we are asked sometimes. I think generally, if you think about the industry as a whole, this industry has not gone through an economic downturn. So I think the Baltic industry started, I think, in around 2015-16.
Yeah, it depends. Of course, Pandora is the first one at, I think, 2008.
Yeah,
I think. So they were just in the downturn, of course, because 2007, 2008 it was the Lehman Brothers crisis. Yeah.
True.
Everybody thinks, I think, about Lehman if we talk about consumer loans, because they think on the subprime, but it's of course something different.
Yes. So for me now to predict what would happen is very sort of far out there, because who predicted the Lehman Brothers? But to answer your question. In the case of a downturn, of course, we would be expecting an increase in the rate of non-payments being made. But as I mentioned earlier, these are short-term loans, and these are sort of a fairly high interest. So we would still see a lot of loans being repaid. So I think it would be a bit different if our exposure was more into 5 to 10 year loans, where you would see a lot more exposure to a downturn.
Yeah.
But in our case, I think it's
very short term, and I think you can always see it from both sides. We never know which kind of crisis you will have. You never know. Is it about the cash Is it inflation or is it about the stock market or whatever? We don't know yet. But I think it could also be both sides, because maybe there is just more business for you because more people need consumer loans. So yeah,
might be because
don't know at the moment.
Because this whole industry, in a way, the online lending industry, now part of Europe, started in sort of I think around 2009 when we were still in the crisis. So there was a need and there was a sort of market for that, and that's what happened. But I think I just want to stress that. As I earlier compared it with banks, I think it's important to stress that it's not a risk-free investment anyway. I think the 14% you're getting, you're also paying for a certain amount of risk that you are taking onto yourself. So we're always advising people to spread out their investments, and I think there's many platforms in Latvia, in the Baltics, and elsewhere where you can sort of diversify.
So I think about another interesting question. I think what happens if Swapper goes bankrupt? What happens of course, maybe we should talk about what happens for you, but also for the investors, of course, yeah.
Of course. So specifically when Swapper would go bankrupt, so as I mentioned earlier, I think, first of all, I think it's fairly unlikely, and second, the way the agreements have been set up, so you as an investor, you own these loans or shares in these loans.
So they are separated,
So yes, but with the bankruptcy, that doesn't change, so you're still owning those loans. I think practically there would be an insolvency procedure, and I think there would be an administrator appointed who would then administer the repayment of those loans and also the payment to investors of those of that money.
So it would continue with the 14%, of course?
Well, I think I think generally that if you say bankruptcy, the business itself would stop, but the money would still be repaid, or part of that money would still be repaid and then paid onwards to investors. So that will still continue.
Okay. So it would continue with the rate the borrower pays, or would it be continued as it was in the assignment for us with Swapper?
No, it will continue with the rate the borrower pays. But,
okay, so we have the risk, but also we have the higher rates in this case.
Yes, exactly.
If it happens.
So
okay.
I think I can say that, well, I wouldn't guarantee that out of 100 cases, 100 would be sort of
paid back. Of course, it will be bad debt loans.
But I think that is I think the risk that is associated with this business.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, but it's also good to talk about the risks, of course.
Yes.
But
I think just to answer, I think that's why I think it's important to also talk about risk, because I think our some of the, let's say, category companies that we have around, I think they sometimes talk about buyback and that there's little risk and so on and so on. I think it's still a fairly risky category to invest in.
Yeah.
But when you understand that and when you sort of take that into account, then I think it's a good investment.
Yeah, I think so. And I think one important thing is just diversification, also through platforms, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It is the way it is. And of course the asset allocation as well. Yeah,
yes.
I'm also invested on stock market and all, but you have to diversify anyway, because it goes with the stocks, and I say the stock market is what is going down, and we have no problem on the B2B, so we never know, I think it's all about diversification, and the compounding effect is really great.
I agree.
So,
yes.
For example, if in my case, for example, I take 10 my plan is to take 10 platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I'm invested on 8 platforms right now, and I think if one goes bankrupt, so it's just like, I don't really, of course I feel it, but it's not so bad, because I will not lose money in any way because of the others.
Yes.
Okay, so, but now continue with the question from the community, from the p2pcredit.com forum. Bolanga asks, can you please comment on your assignment rules on loans out to invest function? I mean, I think he talks about who comes first,
Right. Yeah.
So who gets the loans on the auto invest?
I think the background to that question is probably that usually with Swapper and like with other platforms, usually there's more investors than there's
exactly. I think that's the rule. So first come, first serve, or how it?
No. It's certainly not first come, first serve. So the way it works is that there's a let me try to explain it. let's say we put 100,000 euros worth of loans onto the platform.
Yeah.
Let's say on Monday, and there's a list of investors who have created auto invest portfolios, and then basically there needs to be a logic how that 100,000 euros.
Exactly. I think this is the question.
Distributed among those auto invests. So what happens is that the system basically ranks all the investors that we have. So all 1,400 people are ranked from 1 to 1,400, and that ranking is based basically on how much spare cash you have at the moment on your account.
Okay.
And also your total value of your total account. So let's say how big of an investor you are in a way.
Okay, so big investors get more loans, of course.
And also looks at your historic account value. So basically, it takes these three components and ranks you on that list. So people who have, let's say, people who are bigger investors and who have lots of cash sitting around, so they will be ranking at the top.
Okay.
And then everyone else would rank accordingly below that.
Yeah, makes sense.
So what happens when you get these 100,000 in? So the system then allocates to the first one, but it gives to the first person only a certain amount from those.
Yeah, of course, that everybody gets something.
Yeah. So it doesn't give you like the whole amount you have spare.
Yeah.
And then when it gives you that amount, and then it goes to the next, to the next, to the next. And what's important is that once you either run out of cash, let's say the 100,000, so basically it stops in the ranking where it last allocated the money, and when new cash comes in onto the platform, it continues from that list. So even if you are, I don't know, number 1,277 in that list, you would still get a share of the 100,000 or the money that comes in the next day.
Very intelligent algorithm behind it.
Yeah, there's a certain logic how to, and I think it's important to stress that it's not just first come first served. Is that basically there's a certain logic. Yes, it does put preference towards those that have more cash available and who are bigger, but
I think that's life, and that's also fair. In the stock market, it's the same. If you have more parts of this company, you own more stocks, you have more to vote. So
the good news for small investors is that you still get a part of it, even though you might be lower down the ranking.
Or people increased investments. Okay, then we have the questions for followers sent me private. For example, Katja, she asks, what are your expectations regarding the future, the next 5 years of P2P in general?
This is I think I think overall it's a very big question, but I think overall I think the future is quite bright. I think what you are seeing is that there's a lot more going on in peer-to-peer than just consumer loans. So I think what you're seeing are more and more also in our region is that you get real estate financing, you see invoice financing, many things that have already started in other parts of the world, but they are now being picked up here. And I think you will see the same model that the financing goes through the platform, but the underlying assets might be quite different. And I think that's one of the interesting things that I see in the industry is that what else can you finance in a way through a peer-to-peer platform?
Yeah, so just because maybe it's also smarter, for both sides, smarter for the investor of course, but also as well smarter for the borrower, because you just go on the platform, you can use everything online and so on, and it also works much faster. And I think one important point is maybe that you just don't need to pay a big bank building, for example, a lot of employees and everything, because most of it is an intelligent software.
True.
At least. And that's digitalization. So.
And I think especially consumer lending, I think our case depends really on how, and also many of the category players, their business is going to depend on how are they able to grow their lending business. So if that grows, of course, the platforms grow.
So maybe that's also the next question, because she also asks about the future of your company. So including future plans, hiring employees, spreading to other loan originators maybe, but I don't think you are planning this. But you will tell me other countries, etc.
Regarding our plans, so our plan is to focus, of course, on the user experience of Swapper and on the brand and on the reputation of that. But But more on the business side, our focus is on growing the lending business, so that we have more loans available to be put onto the platform. So that is basically answering your question. Is more countries, or let's say new products in existing countries, depending on how the markets work.
Okay, great. So I just received your message right now from the phone. A little bit of delay, I think. Okay.
It's a while.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, great. Maybe you also answered the question about, or I would have an additional question, I think, because you said you want to improve, of course, Swapper. Yeah. You also made, I think, another design last week from Swapper homepage. Yeah, I'm not sure if I really like it, but it's only a subjective feeling. The color is like. Anyway, I like the return. Yeah. But where are the borrowers from? I'm thinking about right now. So are they only from the Baltics? Are they only from Latvia? The borrowers from the Vandu finance group?
No. The Vandu has no business, no lending business in the Baltics. So the borrowers are
from
Poland, Georgia, Spain, Russia, and Denmark.
Okay, I should have known that. Yeah, but
that's quite
okay, but that's what we are talking about, and now it's also for me, of course, interesting. And to be honest, the main purpose to come here was, of course, because I want to know everything better, and I think the reason for the videos is just I want to give something back also to the community, and I think it makes sense also to give other people the chance to get it to know better. And if we are talking about all that stuff, we can also make a video, but maybe some viewers will have a problem with my cutting or something. So I'm sorry, the main purpose is not the video, yeah. So I hope I can give some information with the video in any way.
Yep.
But the next question would be about the future of the Baltic economy in the next 5 years. What do you think about this?
Well, I think the recent data from the Baltics is very good. I think we have a GDP growth rate of 4.6, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of focus towards. I think during the past, ever since I think the downturn in 2008 and 2009, a lot of focus has been also from the government side, from the business side, on growing the export capability. So you see a lot of industry. You see a lot of effort towards that. And especially in the spheres of IT and fintech, and there's a lot of things happening here. Big companies have their own sort of development centers here.
And my feeling is that also from the Baltics, of course, it's like going from the IT and from fintech, it's going from the Baltics through to Europe. Yeah, so like it starts in the Baltics and expands in other countries, I think.
Yes.
But the headquarter often is, of course, for example, in Riga. Yeah?
Yes.
And that's great, yeah. Okay, and they also ask about the future of the other countries you are invested in.
Well, it's a big question. I think generally the data that is available, I think is showing that Eurozone generally is doing quite okay. So I wouldn't speculate beyond that. I really wouldn't. But I think it's a fairly good outlook at the moment.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, then how can risk be reduced by the company? Risk, for example, like economy slowing down, loan originators quit their business. Okay, of course you have your own loan originator, but I think the question is also interesting for us in this company because, what can I do to reduce the risk?
I think the primary thing is diversification. As with any investment, I think that's the primary aspect that you should take into account. And another thing I think is to follow the markets where marketplace lenders like us have our most exposure in, like Poland or Russia or Georgia or Spain. I imagine if there's a big economic shift in Poland that might have an effect on the lending business as well. But for the moment, I don't think there is anything expected there.
Okay, so maybe some final questions from my side. Of course, I really love your platform, but you will understand that investors would like to be invested in different P2P platforms. We also talked about it in this interview. Beside different allocations anyway, because of diversification. Are there any other platforms you recommend, maybe at least 3?
I think one is certainly that you have already visited last week in Estonia, in Bondora. They have been around the longest, and I think they have, if I may admit, the most original peer-to-peer model,
that's true.
Because they sort of basically do what peer-to-peer was intended to be.
Exactly, doing. It's everything in one house, in one office as well,
So lending and
investing, of course,
It's under one roof. That's the other reason for Bondora. And I think the third one, I think, is they have done a lot to improve the investor experience. And I think they just recently launched a nice product where basically you invest and forget, in a way, if I may put it that way. There's no tinkering around with how to invest options and so on. They basically say invest and then that's it. So Bondora certainly, of course, Mintos, I think is the second one I would recommend, especially as we discussed earlier, for the purposes of diversification, because they have a big spread of loan originators available. And the third one. For the third one, I think I would be looking at some of the real estate platforms,
like Estate Guru,
or Crowd Estate, or some bulk estate.
Just for diversification, for the allocation of the portfolio.
Yes.
Sure, we do not give any investment advice, of course, in these videos, but everybody has to make his decision on his own, and maybe our views might be interesting how you are mainly invested. On your own, so what are your investments? What's your strategy?
So I have invested in platforms like ours, a bit, but that's sort of to be expected in a way, because there's also sort of a professional interest to be invested there just to see how things are going. But for me, the most let's say an exciting category besides peer-to-peer and marketplace lending is robo-advising and robo-investing.
Okay.
And specifically, I have now invested in there's this platform called ETF-matic.
Okay.
They're available, I think, in most European markets, which basically similar like marketplace lending platforms. It charges almost zero commissions, and it allows you to invest into exchange-traded funds. Which is a very nice market to be invested in.
So like ETFs just on an index, or
yeah. And I've started using that, and I find it very exciting. And I think if you look at the whole category that they're building, or that they are part of, this wealth management and robo-advising, I think it's a very interesting development there. And
you also have direct investments on the stock market?
No.
So in the company, no, on the ETF.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So maybe some viewers might be interested to sign up on your platform. I will put the link in the description under the video. Do you have any affiliate program with advantages for our viewers at the moment, or is there anything planned?
No, not at the moment. No, we don't have any let's say promotional programs or affiliate programs at the moment, and we're not currently thinking about that.
Okay, so you have enough investors, I think, anyway, at the moment. So
it's a good problem to have, but yes.
So your advertisement is the rate, the interest rate. I think investors get back.
Yes,
of course. Okay, so I think there was a lot of information in this interview. So I thank you very much for that, for your time, for all your efforts, and hope to meet again. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and goodbye also to our viewers. I hope you liked the information.